everybody. Welcome to More Than Meets the Eye with Mr. Rick Yencer, the voice of the people, a newsman, book author, and outlaw.
Well, thanks.
You're welcome. Glad to have you here today. I'm Elisabeth Edgell, and I am the owner of this podcast on Delaware County Community Awareness and the Manifest Destiny Reporter, which Rick so graciously writes for. So we're here today. We're talking about change of foods. I'm no singer, but I know how this music plays. How about you, Rick?
Oh, there's been a lot of change, whether it's downtown Muncie, Yorktown, or even what's going on here with an election within 45 days.
It is about 45 days, isn't it? I got that notification a few days back about the 50, but it goes fast. So I don't have any announcements myself other than, we dealt with a few weird situations this week. I just made a breaking news announcement about Mr. Phil Nichols, who was associated and indicted along with 9 other defendants, Muncie Sanitation District. He just went into the cardiac intensive care unit of the hospital after a fall.
Really?
Yeah, so he is, he's in intensive care right now, so we're watching what happens with him. We also, when I went to the Meet the Candidates this week at Central, which I believe you're going to talk about later in the show, I sat next to Mr. Don Dunnick.
Mm-hmm.
He passed away this week in a car accident, a single vehicle car accident. The coroner released their findings, at least to press, and he had a heart attack, it looks like, that made him have the accident. It was a round ball state, so, he wasn't doing anything out of order. It's just he had something happen.
Actually, Liz, he was going to see someone in the hospital.
That's right.
When this happened, and I remember I've known Don for years, and he was always there and loyal, respectful.
Now, what positions had he held in?
Well, he was he elected-wise, he was a county commissioner.
Okay.
But he's been a trial lawyer for years. And
he was
also
there supporting his daughter that night.
Yeah, his daughter, Amanda Dunnick, who's running for Circuit 1 on the Democrat ballot. Don and Betty, her mother, they were so pleased to see her run and continue the legacy of the
family. She's doing a good job with that. I heard her platform that night and was really impressed with her. And I think that's pretty much... Washington Street Festival seemed to be a huge success. I was there both days. Wonderful people. The vendors were just amazing. Everybody I saw had a great time. Food was just stellar. I bought things. My roommate bought things. We had a great time, and we did tour the house. Let me tell you, thank you all if you had a home on tour during the Washington Street Festival. That's a lot of work. And you were so gracious, and you told us your stories about how you came there and the history behind your homes. And since I live in a historical home here, it's my roommates, but we both share our love of history. We were really enthralled to go through your homes and see all that you've done with them and keeping them within a history that your home was made in. So we appreciate all the work that everyone did on the Washington Street Festival. That was just an amazing job. The bands were good. I didn't hear a single complaint from anybody, and that's rare in this county.
The music was great.
It was.
Some of the best music around. The Blue 32, the 5 speeds, and of course the old favorites like Remini.
That's
were playing.
They even had a town crier one day.
Did they?
Yes, it was so awesome. I'm like, what is that? And then I found out it's the town crier. They had belly dancers one other day
there was other entertainment.
Yeah, you had a good variety of things that you could go do with the family, and I really enjoyed that.
Well, you mentioned the housing, and I went over, as you know, the history. That this neighborhood was recognized about a half a century ago as a historic landmark because of Emily Kimbrough.
Yes,
and that house that she grew up in over on Washington.
Yes, we toured.
it's not weathered very well lately. They did finally fix the roof, but
you could tell they were early in the process of restoring it. You could.
It takes a lot of work in some of these
money.
houses. you live in a century-old house.
Well, and after I own docks downtown, and it was already registered as a historical building, I know how difficult it is if you have that distinction on your business or your home. You can only work with approved members to work on it. You can only do certain colors. There's a lot of constraints.
A lot of rules of how you build out.
And that takes time to go through the proper channels, to go through procedure and policy and do it correctly and not skip any.
And it's expensive too.
It's very expensive. So I want to give kudos to those people that participated, because it was lovely getting to see your homes and to walk into another spot in time.
It's my favorite because as we're in the equinox now, and
we are happy fall.
Times are changing. The last weekend here, some of the biggest festivals in Indiana with James Dean, the Ducktail Run,
that's right,
and the old Madison Chautauqua down on the river.
It was a little difficult to get around last weekend because of the railroad
the railroads, yeah.
I want to thank everybody in the group for being so understanding, even though I know you were frustrated. We all were trying to get around. I know that EMS and fire and police did their best to respond in a timely fashion for all your calls in the last week or so. I know they do their very best. I did listen to the scanner, and I know that it impacted people, but I didn't hear any certain negative thing that stuck out to me about it affected anyone. If it did, get a hold of us and let us know, and we'll be happy to follow up on your story if you were impacted during that. We're not going to talk a lot about it because it is over. They have moved on. They're headed toward Alexandria. Am I correct?
Right. A couple things I'd like to say about that haven't been reported. I talked to one of the business agents for the Railroad Workers Union, and this was more than just fixing crossings. They replaced track on a couple of the lines. They're downtown and the western line that goes from Muncie to Yorktown.
Right.
They brought in 80 people, and if you drove up and down Westview Boulevard last week, you saw these little orange machines that actually replaced track and the other infrastructure, because there were reports of sinking ground and other problems.
So they replaced track as well as the crossings.
Fixing the crossings.
That's cool. We didn't know that.
Well, and this was all done within a week.
Which is pretty amazing if you think about it. I mean, I know it was a struggle, especially with the current conditions of the potholes on the roads. I know everybody's just at their wits' end with it. I get that. I do. Because some people, when this first rolled out at the beginning of the week, they didn't know about it. And that was my only complaint. They didn't know about it. And they were on their way to work, and all of a sudden they had to reroute, and several people were late to work. And that always causes problems, right?
Well, sure.
You know, the railroads have already been a problem in Muncie to get to work. I know, because I used to work at the mall. And, you know, you get stuck by the same train going in. So you would know.
People need to remember, though, we have two main overpass, an underpass and an overpass. An underpass in downtown on Madison, an overpass over Kilgore in West Muncie.
I was proud of the community groups that came together to inform the public. My group, Stellar, I want to put a shout out to Cameron Grubbs, who created a shareable graphic art where he had the closings done. We shared that at the beginning of it. And then Yorktown really come to bat on this, and through their community page and the city page, they shared the closings, all of them, and they were the most up to date every single day. And in fact, the city of Muncie shared them. I'm not going to talk about the city of Muncie, because if I can't say nothing good about it, then I'm not going to say anything at all. All right, so thank you, Yorktown. Thank you, Cameron Grubbs. Thank you to everybody who shared about the closings in their neighborhood. This is what makes a community, right, when we try to help each other.
That's what we're here for.
That's right. So with that, we're going to take a moment and we're going to check out one of our sponsors. We appreciate them. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the downtown with Rick Yencer. There's some news to hear. It's the news you can use. All right, we'll be back in a moment, and give us a short second. folks, this is the Hitchin Post, and we're located at 2221 East Jackson Street in Muncie, Indiana. We get your boots tapping with a great mix of live music on Friday at 8 p.m. and Saturday at 9 p.m. with bands. And don't forget Thursdays, open mic nights with Lee Whitman at 7 p.m. Come on down to the Hitchin Post, folks. Get those boots tapping. Hello, and we are back with More Than Meets the Eye with Elisabeth Edgell and Rick Yencer, Voice of the People. Rick wanted to discuss today some new updates that's going on downtown, and it's a lot of info.
Yeah, there's been much change here lately that you might have read or heard about some of the key players in the downtown. One being Accutech and Adam Unger, who bought the old Sears building and renovated into, I think, what he calls the clubhouse.
Ah, yes.
And the clubhouse is an automated video game that attracts both young and old alike. His dad, Ray, created that firm, and it was financial software years ago. And they built it looked like a schoolhouse out on 500 West.
Oh, yeah.
And ran that business for at least 20-some years out there. When it changed hands to the next generation, they wanted to come downtown because they saw with Ivy Tech and more people moving downtown that was the new market. Lately, Architects bought up a couple other firms, whether it's Intersection or the old Whitinger Strategic Service.
Okay.
And they've also
Ball State?
No, the ones that down at the corner of the old Mitchell building.
Oh, okay.
And the others out next to the Innovation Connector.
Okay.
Whitinger used to be an accounting firm.
Yeah, they have a Whitinger internet.
Oh, it's the name. Yeah, his name is branded on
center down there, and that's where I was taking classes.
That name is branded on the College of Business at Ball State.
Ah, okay. So it's a brand.
The buy-up also includes the old Pazel building.
The jewelers.
Penny and Fred Pazel owned for years and had and that jewelry store's been there for
I had my wedding ring size there 20 years ago.
Well, it's a beautiful old building that has a big auditorium in it.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And it's also structurally sound. Now, there hasn't been any plans announced for that building yet, but there's been some talk that there may be a restaurant there.
Oh.
And speaking of restaurants, we've had the biggest change, I think, besides somebody with new money that's buying up downtown property, is Steve and Kent, who sold Vera Mays after 20-some years.
That's huge.
And they sold it to Accutech.
Which blows me away because their restaurant within Accutech is so different than the fine dining one experiences that they're.
Well, the fine dining that they build up, and they build up a sizable market, not only here in Muncie, but around East Central Indiana. People coming for dinner. They always have big events, Christmas parties, and of course the music of longtime pianist and Phil Cooley, who passed away a year ago.
I truly enjoy Vera Mays.
I always like to go on Saturday and listen to Phil play the keys. It kind of was a scene out of Casablanca.
Yeah, me and my roommate like to go get dressed up and have appetizers and drinks.
And
and it's a place you can do that.
Now, even though they announced it's going to be the same format, the same type of restaurant, without Kent and Steve, I just don't know.
Right.
Well, I guess we'll just see the future because, talking of fine dining, Russell Irving put a lot of time and means into the old Neely House.
Yes, he
And
did.
turned that into a nice venue for
It
food
still
and beverage.
flows, am I right?
And well, yeah, he sold it to some new money, and those new owners never got the staff together, never really opened it. So that's still up on the market, and we still don't know what's going on. Now you go down on the other side of the downtown, down to Elm Street, and Bill Letts, who opened that as just a brewery, but had the foresight to bring in music and events. Besides, during the pandemic, he got a liquor license because under the law, the downtown is in a district where food and beverage can get special exceptions for three-way licenses.
They created one with the White River project, correct?
That and Dave Ring of the farm market has one. He renovated the old
downtown farm stand.
Yeah. He renovated the old Arthur Murray dance studio above.
Yeah, I've been sharing their events in the Delaware County Community Awareness Group. I've talked to his wife several times.
Oh, Sarah.
Lovely lady. Shout out to them for what they do for the community and bringing
my
their
neighbor.
organic vegetables, and they have great food. And I'm sure these events are awesome too. I haven't been able to go because I work every Friday and Saturday night in another club, but I have definitely shared those events. They seem amazing.
Yeah, they've done a very good job of getting organic food to the community.
Yeah, I agree.
And of course, some of the biggest change the other day was when the Redevelopment Commission agreed to buy the current YMCA.
Yeah, that was
surprised.
huge.
Yeah, that surprised a lot of people
At
because
the tune of $500,000.
well, that was a contribution towards the new Y that they want to build between Central and the field house.
And then the mayor's going to lease it back from them for $1 as long as they stay in the old facility.
Well, now they still have to pay the utilities and the operations.
But as far as income,
well, the way the talk at the commission and what the mayor said, they may just demolish the building if the Y or when the Y builds
they
a
did
new
say that in the
facility.
Star Press article.
Was that
it
reported?
it was reported
Okay.
that they could end up demolishing it, and that was a quote from the mayor, I believe.
Well, I have a problem with what I was still at the paper 30 years ago when Jim Carrey was mayor, and they went through a series of demolitions downtown. The old Weiser building that stood at Walnut and Main Street.
Right.
The Ball Stores building down on Mulberry. And other buildings that had still value and worth. The Rivoli Theater, which was a landmark, and it was torn down for Ball Foundation offices.
Right.
Every generation we seem to want to tear things down, and a lot of people ask me, well, why'd they tear down the old High Street Square right there at the point of the river?
They did tear that down.
Yeah, it's
quick.
Yeah, because
With
again, it's another housing development like they built on Washington Street, of building lofts.
No, I wasn't in mind because I owned a business downtown. I owned Docks for a while,
Right.
Previous to Mike Martin. And I was under the impression that the downtown development was more about local business and crafters and artists and music and keeping that downtown alive as somewhere that we could enjoy. I didn't realize, like many people, that included housing down there.
Of course.
I thought that the housing would go elsewhere because there's only so much space.
Now remember, a century ago, downtown Muncie was filled with businesses, and most of the business owners lived in the upper floors.
Now I understand that, yeah, but I'm talking about, luxury apartments and just general housing.
I'm still wondering where people are coming, because I looked at population figures today for another story about employment that's on Manifest Destiny, about jobs and employment figures that show great growth in our economy, even though people tend to harp about food and fuel costs. But here, we're building out so much housing, I'm still wondering who's coming to Muncie.
Yeah, because our population numbers have gone down.
Wasn't there just, didn't the mayor say, we were just watching an old video where he said there were 20 people leaving any given day?
Yeah.
Well, I don't see a lot of people coming outside of maybe that can plant they built out there.
Trying to attract the work from home workers, right? With deals to come here. They have that website online. I can't remember it right off the top of my head right now, but it's work from home people that
the
cities,
remote
cities post about come to our city, and it gives them a deal to come here, with housing and they all have different deals.
You mean they're providing the benefits of housing and
yes. They are. Yeah, it is. And that's been met with some mixed results. If you've been to the city council meetings, we spoke to a gentleman that has been here since October, moved here from Washington, D.C.
Right.
And he has not had any hot water in his luxury apartment that he pays $1,400 a month for.
Yes, the ongoing conflict with the Wilson brothers.
And so some of them have been put into one of those situations, and they're not real happy with their whole experience.
Well, given my background of having union labor, my dad, my uncle, other family members, I've noticed these stick-built housing that you see downtown or out over by the Oasis on Burlington. I don't see a lot of local labor. I certainly don't see union labor.
No,
and
not at all.
Again, there are kids that are in apprenticeship programs with all the labor unions here. The Muncie schools are pushing trade.
A lot of the tradespeople I know that are within the construction unions have been working out of city all year.
Yeah, most of the trade jobs when it comes to electrical, plumbing, carpentry, they're working on other projects elsewhere.
Yeah, we have so many projects here, it's hard to believe that not one of them could
But at least two unions I know have big apprentice programs. They're teaching 18-year-olds how to pour concrete, how to build houses.
The right way.
How to do what has been done before, because a generation ago, everything was built by organized labor.
What else is happening in the downtown? Anything else?
Well, the downtown, we're still wondering what's going to be done. I think the apartments the renovation of the old Williamson building there at Washington and Walnut Street, there's another big property management group called Campus Edge. And they're putting a lot of money into some of these old buildings to renovate them. They've got a lot of Ball State properties too. But again,
that was some news. Ball State on
Middletown property.
Yeah, they withdrew and pretty much kicked them out of managing any property.
No, they said cease and desist of using the Ball State name or brand on their
BSU rentals
on their properties.
I was a subsidiary of them, but I was proud to see them do that. Actually, they stood up for their students and they stood up for what is right. Now, does it accomplish anything? Well, that's yet to be told. The squeaky wheel gets greased. Period. Now, we know that our General Assembly would be the one to be in charge of all that. It's really out of our jurisdiction. However, cities and entities and organizations can come out and make a statement where they sit on it. They can also decide who gets involved in future projects. They can undo working conditions where they're involved in working with them people. They can do a lot more than they've done.
Ball State was a good friend to labor years ago, but lately they've fallen into this trap like everybody else of, well, if we can get it done cheaper, we'll just use anybody. But Ball State has a vested interest in that, Liz, because I remember the trustees meeting a few months ago, they talked about only having about 2/3, 65 to 70% occupancy of all those new dorms that they built in the last couple of years.
I know those ones in the village were a resounding flat.
And their motive is still to get more kids back on campus because they're not filling all those dorms right now.
Well, enrollment's down even in the Muncie school systems up to Ball State.
Well, we'll see about that because the count day's coming up. We'll see How
When
many
is
kids
that,
are
do
in
you
public
know?
school? It's this month,
Okay.
but I haven't. I've been busy doing
Many other things.
countless other things like the festivals on the weekend, trying to figure out who's buying
You're
what
watching
downtown.
Yorktown's
Oh, in
leadership.
Yorktown.
We'll get to talk about that in the next segment. Is there anything else on downtown that you wanted to add, Rick?
Well, I think we need to focus the future here. We need to keep an eye on the Redevelopment Commission because that is the government agency that has the money, the edit money, the EDC money, and the mayor, who also serves as the economic development director besides the mayor,
Yes,
directs
many hats.
directs all of this development. So it'll be interesting to see because the whole thing with the YM moving, the city and the schools are supporting that with tax dollars when it's a pay-to-play proposition. The mayor's putting over $1 million grant into that neighborhood at Columbus and Walnut. Besides, the school is letting them come on school property when the neighbors, if you remember a year or two ago, they wanted to go to Tui and the neighbor said, no way.
Yeah, well, it doesn't seem to matter what a lot of the people want. I mean, we hear about it after it's already in go mode.
Oh,
you know? They've been circumventing us getting to talk about these things at public meetings because when you skip those meetings, you don't give the people opportunity to catch up.
You know as well as I do, Liz, that people are not going to meetings. They don't care.
Well,
they don't
not only are the
participate.
people not going to meetings, but when we talk about the election in the last segment, neither are the candidates.
Well, that's another thing that we're going to talk about quickly because with the election coming up, as of today, the equinox, we still don't even have a sample ballot. And I can remember years ago, not even some time ago, that we still had sample ballots way before
A month or so before, right?
Yeah, before we started voting next month.
All right, well, we're going to listen to our sponsors, real quick break, and then we're going to come back and we're going to discuss some change in the Yorktown leadership because we are more than meets the eye, Delaware County Community Awareness, and we are about change and fools.
Exactly.
All right, we'll be right back. Come back and listen to us there in a second. Hey folks, it's the Hitchin Post again. That's at 2221 East Jackson Street in Muncie, Indiana. We always have dinner ready and waiting for you there. Come on down. With takeout or eating here, we have a full menu and we're always serving and cooking until the last call. Ask us about our daily specials and catering maybe on your holiday events. So come on down to the Hitchin Post at 2221 East Jackson Street in Muncie, Indiana. Come on down and dinner is always ready and waiting. Hi everybody, we are back with More Than Meets the Eye with Elisabeth Edgell. Me, I'm the creator and owner of Delaware County Community Awareness and the Manifest Destiny Reporter. And we are here today with Mr. Rick Yencer, the voice of the people. And we are going to talk about some changes that we've had in Yorktown leadership recently that affect a lot of things, right?
A lot of people, mainly Yorktown, but Muncie too. Let me take you back to the history real quick.
Okay.
Yorktown, that was the home of Mars Supermarkets Warehouse. They had a piece of Warner Gear. They were a sundown town, quite frankly, a century ago, where the Klan hung out on picnic day.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we've got signs at the Yorktown Historical Society on that. But anyway, let's fast forward to just about 10 years ago when Yorktown and Muncie were in an annexation fight. Going west on McGalliard, they were fighting over the border of where all new housing and all new commercial development. Well, Muncie won that battle because they had the utilities already there.
Oh.
And it's funny because even though Muncie is at the corner of Nebo and McGalliard, Yorktown is to the south and to the west. After that happened, a few years later, the town council and the town manager, Pete Olson, who just resigned last week after 15 years as the executive for that community, they created under a new law that started in Zionsville of allowing a town to abolish a township and then assume the land and the business and the houses of that township into the town. That's what Yorktown did less than 10 years ago, and that started the fast track motion of what we see out there today. Back then, they started with a new sports center.
Right, I remember that.
And it was supposed to be a public sports facility. Now, the high school still uses it along with soccer teams, but basically it's a pay-to-play facility for Munciana volleyball, and there's a YMCA branch out there.
So that's what we just heard with the downtown.
Yeah, the thing with the YMCA going on downtown happened 10 years ago out there. And we have to pay, even though taxpayers pay for that building and its operation. We still have to pay to be a member.
Wow.
But we continue forward as the town grew, their needs grew for better utilities, better public safety. The problem still is that they live in a kind of a in-between town and a township because they still have a volunteer fire department, but they have like a $1 million police department in a community that doesn't have a lot of crime.
Right.
And Pete had orchestrated all this when they brought in 5 years ago, the town council brought in consultants to design a new town. And of course they only see that town as what's up and down 32 where the old town is.
Right.
They don't see the new town, which is actually out there on the interstate at 332 and 69, because that industrial park out there is Yorktown. And they've struggled just to put utilities out there as that industrial park grew, and that's really where the new town is. But they brought in people to say we needed a new town hall, we needed more housing, and yeah, that kind of sounds like the same deal in downtown Muncie. We need more housing. Well, they built a loft building there, but what they did was do it on the backs of some of the oldest property owners in town, the what was left of the Ross supermarket family. Janice Ross, who had a beautiful California flat top house out there. They fought in court using eminent domain to take property away from her, Ruby Martin, and Jerry and Sharon Puckett. And it was a national, it had national headlines, but they backed off after they got Janice's property and Gib Fuller's old gas station out there. But they've spent millions and indebted millions on that. Well, last year they had, after the old marshal resigned, they brought in somebody from Noblesville, and a controversy erupted over how he wanted to change his relationship with other law enforcement in the community.
Yes.
And he also fired a controversial officer who was accused of covering up
several times
the arrest of his brother. And it just, there was just one
from there.
It's just one conflict after another. But
he got into it with Delaware County Sheriff.
Oh yeah, I was surprised when Delaware County Sheriff called this guy a tyrant. He didn't seem like a tyrant.
That was recently at his at the election.
Oh, at the election forum last week, yeah.
Central, yeah.
And I didn't ask why, but
I was like, a tyrant. That's a bit much.
Well, outsiders aren't very well liked.
Yeah, yet we have many of them in leadership roles.
Some, yes, we do. But it was a surprise that Pete gave his resignation, even though when talking to some of the council members, he hadn't been happy. And what they did with that eminent domain case with longtime residents of Yorktown was just divide that community right down the middle.
Yeah, it stayed pretty much there.
There was a group of council members who didn't grow up there that moved there from Muncie and elsewhere, and pretty much controlled the spending and the which also upset long-time people. Besides, it's a classic example of a one-party rule.
Well, it is.
Because no Democrat has won office there in a few years.
And you've run for office
and
there for quite a bit of time.
Yeah, I think people know this brand.
Yeah, pretty sure.
Because again, all you have to do is Google.
I mean, you know,
But
you
regardless,
are the voice of the people.
the voice of the people. But anyway, Pete wanted to go quietly, but even his supporters on the council said, no, we're gonna acknowledge that and go to YouTube, because if you see the council meeting from last week, you can see that they didn't really talk about the budget, which they never do. They never talk about anything
They're doing
that's
the
relevant.
budget right now, right? Just like
Last week we talked about that and how people aren't showing up for that, and they're not really telling us how they're going to spend the money. But no, it was very surreal, because they did make a big deal out of hiring yet another marshal after the last one resigned, and this makes the third.
Have his name?
It's Kurt Waldhauer. I think a lot of people know him. He's been a county deputy for 20 years. He's currently the jail commander.
I knew I'd heard his name.
I know him personally from working at the paper years ago, and he's a good guy. He's stand up. Good. He's got a good family. And
so it should be seamless.
Well,
it's up the head.
See, there's a big change, because all the people that supported Pete, that served on the council and controlled the council, they're not running for re-election. Actually, there are local people, even though there's no contest in Yorktown in November, there are local people again that are going to serve that council and serve the interests of the people, not the interest of money or how much money you can make, because one of the council members, Bob Rashford, was a big property management.
I stayed in one of their apartments at Ball State a few years ago.
Another was a realtor, Rich Lee, and the third one, Lon Fox, runs the local UPS.
Yes.
And he was big into the soccer, amateur, the amateur sports programs there. But they're all moving on, so we'll see in moving on, they had still left this community with a massive debt, about 25 million on the government side. The schools, even though they said they needed more facilities, they spent another 20 expanding and building out on schools, when the enrollment, both enrollment and population, not only in Yorktown, but in Muncie and Delaware, are marginal right now. But we'll see those numbers coming up soon.
I'm looking forward to it, because I'm really concerned.
Yeah, because you noticed what was talked about in Ball State a couple weeks ago, that the enrollment's a bit down, but they didn't really want to say it was down. Even though enrollment at Purdue and
everywhere's
Indiana's still marginal or up.
Yeah. Well, so we're going to keep an eye on Yorktown. We're going to keep an eye on what's going on there and see how the community reacts and how it rolls out during this transition. And I'm sure there'll be lots to see there. When's our next city council meeting there?
They meet the third Monday of any given month at 5:30 in the town hall.
Okay, so we got a good month then to wait on that.
Yeah, they've already had a hearing on the budget, and they asked for big tax increases, but I think anybody knows local government schools that the state's only going to approve a couple percent increase in any kind of a tax levy, because again, that's what the law says.
Well, and the governor's about that too, keeping those numbers down.
Well, that's one thing you can say good about the governor.
That is one.
That he does keep taxes low.
He does. And he did give us all a bonus on our state taxes.
It should have been.
Everybody got like $325 if you filed state taxes last year. So that's something. All right, well, we're going to take another break, and when we come back, we are going to discuss election news and changes that have happened within that. And there's some good ones there to talk about.
Oh, we got plenty.
So we will be back in just a moment. Thank you. It's the Hitchin Post again, folks. That's at 2221 East Jackson Street in Muncie, Indiana, where you start out as friends and you leave as family. With the coldest beer in the county, a full bar, pool, shuffleboard, and that includes leagues, and more friends than you could shake your hat at, why, just come on down and you start out as strangers and you leave as family. See you then at 2221 East Jackson Street, Muncie, Indiana, the Hitchin Post. Hello, we are More Than Meets the Eye with Elisabeth Edgell and special guest Rick Yencer, the voice of the people. And we are going to talk about some election updates. Now, the only one I was aware of was the Meet the Candidate Forum that they had. It was put on by Muncie Resist, League of Women Voters, and several other little...
Bowen Center.
But yeah, there was a lot of sponsors for it. Wasn't the Innovation Connection?
Shape for Leadership.
Yeah, okay. Shape for Leadership. So we went to that, and the first part dealt with people running for elected office, which would be I believe there was the sheriff, right? Then we had the auditor. We had, what else? The coroner.
Oh, there was at that forum that we saw that night. It was also the clerk.
Yeah.
And the judge candidate.
Yes.
So the court won.
But not everybody showed up for that. Most of them did show up for that part, except for the judge candidate that was running against.
Right. I think she had other.
Yeah, she had
another coming.
Right. And so we got to hear a little bit about all their platforms, where they come from, how long they've been in this area, if they were involved or are in current other positions within city or county government. Basically just a general consensus of them. I was pretty impressed by the turnout. It was pretty, more people there than I expected.
Right.
Their forum was run on the format where you wrote note cards as your questions. You gave them to the person, handing them to the gentleman at the podium, and then he went through and was asking questions. Right,
but I think it's remarkable. At least the Republicans showed up, the sheriff Tony Skinner and the clerk Rick Spangler. They didn't focus too much on what's actually going on, because Skinner's opponent, Dave Williams, who is the president of the local union that represents jailers, deputies, other sheriff's employees, the union had just filed suit against the sheriff because that
day, I believe.
It was it was just a matter of days that they were arguing over. Apparently, the last sheriff signed a 10-year agreement with the union, and it gave provisions for re-ups and renegotiations on certain benefits and pay. Well, the current sheriff said he wasn't going to do that anymore, but the agreement is still in effect, so there's nothing he can really do.
Right.
If there's a legal challenge, the court is still going to uphold, because it's not about the person, it's about the office.
That's right.
And the court will still uphold that 10-year tenure.
Yeah.
The clerk, even though they talked about vote centers, and they've been talking about this for years, to go from, I think they've got about 50 some down to maybe 25. They still haven't ironed it out, and they still haven't got the parties to agree. The problem with that is that they're going to have signed agreements again, and that probably isn't going to come. Well, it won't come until at least the city election.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
But then again, we're coming up after next year.
And it's going to upset the voters. I mean, just the redistricting on the last election was a big change. I mean, it took me, and I'm not an unintelligent person, and he's not unintelligent, but we had never heard of the section of road that my voter place was in, and just trying to find that was a nightmare.
And I couldn't believe that people in your neighborhood vote clear down on Burlington near Memorial.
Gilbert, South.
Yeah,
or Willard. My bad. It's actually a section of Willard that I didn't even know existed off of Burlington.
Well, something else that I didn't hear the other night that is a problem with some is that here we are on the equinox, we still don't have sample ballots for the election, and
now
people
you can get yours online. I went and looked at
there are other sites that you can get the candidate information, but in the past the sample ballots have been out way before, just 10 days before you start voting.
I think that shows a direction of change that we're growing into with these elections. Since COVID, things aren't done in person so much. And I think we're moving to a place where these people running for office can do their election pretty much from home. They can put their commercials out, their advertisements. They can involve themselves with online Zoom meetings to meet the candidates if they want. Going in person, people just aren't doing so much, and now we're hearing that your ballots aren't out. Are we moving to an online election? There's no more shaking hands and kissing babies?
No, Indiana is still, even though maybe the candidates don't want to come out, and there's something else that I saw in another forum with the state lawmaker candidates. The problem still is that both parties still try to restrict the vote any way they can. They make it difficult. They still don't have open.
We the people are sick of that.
We the people created this democracy, and it can't fail just because of some people that want to limit that democracy.
Amen.
But we'll see how this all plays out.
That part of the campaign, meet the candidates, went pretty well.
Oh yeah, the local.
The interesting question I thought they asked them was, which was random to me, was their stance on cannabis.
Oh, the weed.
Now you're talking too.
Now you're talking about the lawmakers. Oh no, they did ask.
They did ask them. They asked the sheriff. They asked a judge.
You're right.
Their stance on. I was like, what do you think they're going to say? I mean, come on. Their office and the laws in the state of Indiana mean that they can't say what they feel.
They're looking at yesterday. Today,
I think that's an actual big issue.
Yeah, well, let me tell you about today, because again, the Marion County prosecutor got an adverse court ruling that affected a weed prosecution. Apparently, their friends at the state police lab are not able to determine the amount of THC in weed. Therefore,
because it's subjective.
No, they don't have the technology.
Well, that too, but I mean, it's really subjective to measure what one person feels as opposed to another.
Well, I'm talking about how they test for drugs on criminal cases. And the problem is they don't have the technology, so they can't prosecute weed. And there's still a growing There's growing hemp business in this state that is now...
There's hemp being grown outside of Hartford City in a government field. I know the gentleman who runs it.
Brian Nixon has a hemp field over here by Yorktown.
Yeah, it's interesting to me that people don't know that.
Well, but again, labs are starting to crop up to engineer the amount and the type of plant that is harvested. So it'll be interesting.
So it was just an interesting question, kind of out of the blue. I didn't submit any questions. I did that format out of Dream Within, and I don't care for it. Okay? I don't care for the submit your questions on the little card, because what that does is it takes the personal feeling out of the question I'm asking.
I understand.
I want people to see me asking that question.
It's like this. Yeah. I like open mic.
Exactly.
I'm a big, public hearing.
I mean, I even signed my name to the questions I asked at the Dream Within, and they changed one of my questions. I couldn't say nothing about it.
Requirements for public hearings are starting to fade.
This is becoming a problem, and you can count on the fact that we're going to be doing a major deep dive on how our leadership, all the way to the school board level and up, how they deal with the public. Because, these are our tax dollars. Let me say that again for those in the back that don't know. That's your money that they're using, and that they're doing these things with, and they don't want to let you speak on it. And when our last show was about them being sick of our shit, all right, they don't want to report to you anymore. And we're letting them get away with that.
Just look at some of these recent podcasts of city and county and school government, and you'll see there are those that will speak up and remind them, it's our money, we pay you, and we want to know.
And so you can't say those things to them if you don't go to meetings. I realize a lot of people are working when they have some of the meetings, like the commissioner meetings and whatnot, but with the elections coming up, we're hearing how they're going to spend our money next year. We get to speak on that at the public hearings, and that's coming up too. They haven't announced them for the city yet that I'm aware of.
Next week, on the 28th at City Hall, 6 o'clock.
So we'll be putting that information out for sure. Yeah, so we can get you guys there. Those of you who are able to, get a hold of us. Let's carpool. Do you need a ride? Let us know. We'll work something out. There's almost 23,000 of us in just the Delaware County group alone. I've picked up several people and taken them to meetings before. So we will arrange it. We'll work it out. We'll figure it out.
Great.
All right. So we want you at these meetings. We want you to be informed. If you don't know what goes on or you don't understand what they're talking about, then we'll help you with that too. We're glad to know. I didn't know until I dug into it and talked to people like Rick, excuse me, who are involved and who know how these things work. We're going to go through all that in the group. So if you're not a member of Delaware County Community Awareness, a private Facebook group, please join. We also have the Manifest Destiny Reporter, which Rick is happy to write for.
Oh, yeah, I want to bring us back to the election in a minute. Something we put up on Manifest Destiny last week. We also attended a forum for state lawmakers. All 100 House members are on the ballot and 25 of the 50 Senate.
Right.
Well, it's been about the third candidate forum in recent years that Republicans have snubbed candidate forums because of what they call a hostile group, the League of Women Voters. Now,
I didn't find them hostile.
Well, they are nonpartisan by nature. They are usually trying to uphold two things: voter rights and fair and free elections.
That's right.
Now, in the last couple of years, they came out against Trump when the national organization came out and called him a tyrant, and said that he was orchestrating the January 6th riot. They've also filed suits over voter rights. And Republicans will not go to any of their forums. And this was the case the other night, that there were only Democrats running, and we've only got one Democrat lawmaker around here, and that's Sue Arrington,
yes,
who represents Muncie. And it's going to be a rematch between her and educator, her and educator Dale Basham,
yes,
who's a pretty well-known and well-grounded person that has helped generations of kids.
He's been writing several opinion pieces, editorials about the mayor and his projects and whatnot. At least two that I can think of within the last year.
But this problem of not having forums that have both sides, I mean, that's wrong. I don't care what the reasons are or why they won't do it. It's like it's a chance to meet your voters. Well, and the big problem is we're in a new congressional district now.
Yeah.
We're in a congressional district that includes Noblesville and Anderson besides Muncie.
Yeah.
And the current Congressman, Victoria Sparks, who was elected just 2 years ago, she hasn't had a town hearing here. She doesn't show up here. She's going to be at a chamber luncheon on October 4th. But I've noticed the trend with Republicans in state and federal offices that they'll go to chamber luncheons, or they'll go to Farm Bureau meetings, or the people that they know support them, and they don't represent the people. They don't show up for the people.
And so, what if we get everybody to show up and then they don't?
Exactly.
I mean, I didn't know what to quite do with that myself. I mean, I was there as press and a voter. And so here I am at a candidates that aren't here, and I didn't see anybody acting wildly inappropriate or anything. I mean, Mr. Dunnick sat right next to us in his wheelchair, and everybody was quiet and respectful.
Yeah.
And nobody had a problem. There was Democrats and Republicans there. There absolutely was.
Well, frankly, this division that's across the nation.
Well, the fact there's a divisions in each party.
Right. Oh, well, of course. Let's talk about that quickly, because
we got
on the Republican side, we just got a new chairman. Ed Carroll, who
wasn't there either.
Yes, he was on the ballot for auditor, but let's talk about his control of what his destiny is. He was elected 2 years ago as county treasurer.
Right.
And now he wants to jump that 4-year term and spin it to another term for auditor.
Right, and he's running unopposed.
And he's running unopposed. And he's also the chairman of the party that will elect, because if there's a vacancy in office, that party's committeemen elect a new office holder for 2 years. That's not us. That's not the regular voters. That's not Democrats. That's Republicans.
Yes.
And for a chairman to hold that power outside of the voters, you know, I have to wonder about that too.
Yeah, that's a little too close there. Those two hats are, and the law allows for that.
Well,
there's no about a subordinate doing it in place of him.
no, the
There's
law
nothing
says
there.
the party, the office holder's party.
And I'm not sure about that. I mean, honestly, I don't see any way that could go well and not be contested, or down the road be at least open for being contested. And anything that we can do to further complicate the situation, why don't we do it?
Well, yeah, but remember, it takes two to dance, and the Democrats did not dance for that office, the commissioner's office, the recorder's office, and the assessor's office. There are four constitutional offices that Democrats didn't fill. Now, I understand that, you know, the Democrats are divided too, and there's a new progressive arm, but they don't have the numbers to control yet. And I know the Democrats have had some problems lately with all the problems with the monthly sanitary district, but for crying out loud.
Get somebody to the ballot.
People need a choice.
That's right, and have those four positions unopposed.
That's not happened in my time.
It just blows me away, and it's as much as the city council having four appointed members within.
No, we went back and looked at it. No time in history has an elected body like a city or county council had four, almost their majority, leave for other jobs or other reasons and be appointed.
We're going to dive into that deep someday too and do some research there, because I think there's a story there that we're all missing out on. We just kind of had to accept it and move on because it moved so fast after COVID. And we all
and that's something I didn't mention with Yorktown, that I pitched the deal that, you know, Yorktown is bigger than these old towns like Hartford and Winchester and Alexandria. Yorktown needs an elected mayor. This action of putting appointed people in charge in government is wrong.
I agree with that. I do.
Because we've got so many.
If it's an election office, it should be elected.
It's like the sanitary district board. They're all appointed by the mayor. And frankly...
Well, that didn't go well this last time. There's a problem.
It didn't go well years ago when they had scandal before.
Well, our take on the election is that it's, of course, developing and ongoing. It's around 45 days. You only have until October 11th to register to vote. If you need help registering to vote, please contact me on Facebook through Messenger. You can get all my contact information in the Delaware County Community Awareness page or the Manifest Destiny Reporter. Get a hold of us. We'll be happy to help you get registered. We need every vote we can get. I'm not here to tell you how to vote. I'm not here to tell you what party to vote for. I'm here to give you the information as it's available to me, the press. I give it to you, and we want you to decide what you want from your community. That's what it's for. All right. If you don't like the way it's been going, then we can do something about that, and now's the time to do it. So you got to get registered to vote. We have October 12th starts the early voting. So the vote is on November 3rd.
8th.
Or 8th. Okay. November 8th. So we have a lot of work to do. All right. So get registered to vote. You can do it at indianavoters.com. That's where I go. You can see your ballot. You go and check it and make sure that you are registered to your current address. All right? It's about your address. Make sure there haven't been any changes to your voter location, too. If you didn't vote in the primary, you're going to want to check that. Things changed. So find out the hours that they're available.
And remember, too, that as soon as the 30-day window to vote early, you can go to the county building, you can mail in your ballot, you can vote anytime you want up to November 8th.
Now, I got to say something. Don't mail your ballot in.
What?
All ballots, all voter fraud comes from mail-in ballots.
Well, that's what you think.
It's true. Do your research. Google
I know.
It's about 94%. So that's pretty high. So
but you can still.
If you at all are not bed-bound, homebound, ill, or out of in the country service, then that's appropriate to mail in your ballot. Because it don't fit today that you can go make it to your Zumba class is not a reason not to go vote in person. Voting in person sends a message. It's a vote that can't be tampered with too. All right? It's a vote that can't be tampered with.
I agree, but
so I
the
just
law
have,
still allows.
I know it allows it, but let's think about what it's really for.
Okay.
It's for those who are not able to go in person due to sickness, infirm.
I know.
Yeah, it's not to fit in your soccer schedule. Okay? No, Karen. No.
No.
Get up, off the duff, and
You
go
talking
vote
about
in
my
person.
baby sister now?
No, I'm talking about people out there with all the things that they do in a day.
I understand.
This
but
is
you got
important.
30 days to do it.
Yes,
Instead
it's
of
important.
wait until the
By all
last
means,
day.
if you can't make it, then do that. But vote. They have every avenue available to
Yeah,
you.
the county building ain't that far for anybody.
it's
This
not.
This isn't.
Yeah, and then, like again, if anybody needs rides to go vote, let us know. We can organize
there are
this
other
ahead of
groups.
time. There's all kinds of people that can help you out with
Yeah,
that.
on both sides.
Yes. So get a hold of us. Tell us what you need from us, and we'll try to solve them problems before we get to election day. All right? Is there any other announcements that you could think of?
Oh, just something. I watched not to belabor and belittle the Muncie Sanitary District because they do a good job of keeping the river clean, picking up the trash, and slowly, they got Washington Street open before the festival, and they finally opened up Jackson Street because they're under a federal mandate to separate storm and sanitary. But John Barlow, who's the new district administrator, told me something the other day that made me happy. And that was that they entered into agreement with the Delaware County Commission and got crews in there to pick up all the log jams that you've seen up and down the river. Now, as storms become more violent, there's more flooding, there's more rivers arising, you're going to have a lot of trees, dead and otherwise, floating down. They cleaned that up, and of course the showcase cleanup that Jason Donati runs every September, of sending, I think, a few hundred people down the river to pick up the tires, the bottles, the cans. They did a great job too of picking up about 72,000 pounds of material.
Well, good for them.
And like I say, we have to keep our natural resources, whether it's the water, the land, or the air, clean. Because if you listen to NPR this afternoon about how one part of the country is burning down, another is flooding, and something that they've never seen happen lately, a typhoon that hit Alaska. Weather is getting more deadly.
Everything's changing.
Oh, yeah.
All of it.
Yeah.
I mean, everything across the board.
And if you're not prepared, you always have to be prepared as a Boy Scout.
Well, we're going to do our best to help keep you prepared. If you listen to
we're
one
going
of
to
our
tell you.
resources.
Yeah, we're going to tell you things that you're not going to hear on the, like my Hollywood friends call it, the lamestream media.
We don't play lame duck here.
No.
I had to throw that in. I couldn't resist.
Yeah.
All right, thank you all for tuning in. I know it's been a little bit of a long podcast, but we sure appreciate you tuning in to get this information. We believe it's important. We know it matters to you, so it matters to us. Thank you for helping us change the world one person at a time with More Than Meets the Eye and Delaware County Community Awareness and ManifestDestiny.com. We also have Rick's 150.
Oh, Muncie and 150.
Right, Muncie and 150.
Yeah, the book's still out there. You can get it on Amazon and Walmart for a couple bucks.
We also looked in this week to doing some outside podcasts.
Oh, what's coming up? Yeah,
well, we're thinking about doing some outside podcasts in some local watering holes during cocktail hours so we can hear from the people and get you all involved in our show. So we want to have everybody we can have on the show. We want to hear all kinds of opinions, and it starts with the people. That's who we care about. So if you're not feeling heard, then get a hold of us. If you have something you want to talk about on a podcast with us, if you'd like to be a guest, let us know. We're happy to have you on. In the meantime, we are going to sign out now and get on to our work. And we love you, Delaware County. Talk to you later.
Thanks again.
Bye.
Yeah, that was...
Hi there, folks. This is the last time the Hitchin' Post is going to be coming at you in this podcast. Don't forget that there's plenty of monkey business at 2221 East Jackson Street in Muncie, Indiana. They just love it. Come see us, folks, at 2221.